evil thoughts, and haunted, moldy houses. Hello everyone, my name is Mo, the Gnostic Warrior, and welcome to another walk and talk. This time I'm filming from San Diego near the beach, gonna make my way over that way. Hopefully some of you that got the message of the live broadcast see this live feed stream because I made an announcement on the Gnostic Warrior page about this, and I also commented that because I'm doing it live from my phone that I wouldn't be able to do it from that link. So just wanted to say hello. Thank you everybody from around the world. Please hit that like button and tell us where you're from. I appreciate you guys tuning in. And again, the topic of this walk and talk, hey Heather, is going to be evil thoughts. Where do they come from? And haunted, moldy houses. And I'm going to make an interesting connection for some of you out there, and some of you could relate possibly to some of the things I'm going to say in this podcast. So where I want to go first with this is something I've talked about in the past, and that's what our ancestors had believed in. There's a plane flying overhead up there somewhere, but it might be a little bit loud. Sorry about that. In any event, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a history as far as what our ancestors had believed in regards to spirits. A lot of people, when they hear the word spirit, they don't really understand, the etymology of the word, but essentially it comes from the Latin word spiritus and spira, which means to breathe, the breath. And in Greece and Rome, they used to believe that these spirits were all around us at all times, floating in the air. There was good and there was bad spirits. And they had different names for them. You guys might have heard of the incubi or the succubi. In ancient Rome, they had called them larvae as well. Hello, Julie. Again, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you guys. Please share this with your friends, and let's open people's minds to exactly what's going on out there and what I believe are causing the issues with our world. And I believe a lot of it deals with what I'm talking about here, not as if I have all the answers, but I believe if we start putting the spiritual side of our existence and these religious teachings and the science, that we could use them to better our lives. So back on the word spirit, spira. So they believe that these spirits were all around us and we could breathe them in. They believed in good and bad spirits. The ancient Greeks had called these spirits of men daemons, and they also believed in good and bad daemons. So they would use that term, what I would do, demon, essentially as a universal term in ancient Greece, and some people use that term still to this day. So again, in ancient Greece, they would have said, there was good and bad demons. And today, through the teachings of Christianity, we have more of the angels, right, would be the good spirits. And then the demons would be the bad ones. So that would be kind of the difference to correlate, how these teachings had went over time. And then if some of you guys are into Gnosticism at all, you guys might have heard of the counterfeit spirit. So, sorry, I had a call coming in. It's actually one of my guys from work, but I have to not answer the call because this is a little bit more important, this message right here, because this is what I love to do. Beautiful day here in San Diego, guys. A lot different than it was last week, and I wanted to kind of take you guys to a little bit more scenic route. I'm here working and wanted to stop and take a walk, and I thought it would be beautiful to come out here today. Thank you again for tuning in. I appreciate you guys, and This is this is called the Gnostic Warrior. It's about giving knowledge. And I feel if we understand who we are and why we do the things that we do, and possibly why we have evil thoughts, that we can fix ourselves and fix other people. So in ancient Judaism, if you guys are familiar with Hebrew and the teachings of the Kabbalah, they had teachings, basically evil thoughts were the Yetzer Hara. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but it was Yetzer Hara. And essentially, they believe that thoughts came from two areas. One would be the human, and one from God. So basically, they believe that, not essentially that all humans were evil, but their theology basically was the things of man are pursuits, the vain pursuits of business and things like that, and sex, stuff like that. Those are the human pursuits. Those are the will of man, where the will of God would be, more considered with building God's kingdom and philosophy and religion and stuff like that. And those would be more of the thoughts of God, coming from God in ancient Judaism. And the Hebrews, the Phoenicians, and then of course that went into Greek Orthodoxy. So if any of you guys are familiar with Greek Orthodoxy and the way of thought there, they had a term, and please forgive me if I'm butchering this, but I believe it was logos ome. And the logos ome was essentially where a person's heart, their mind was centered. And it's interesting because I believe that all these teachings kind of go through time and intertwine, and eventually it gets to Rome, because you have the Israelites and the Hebrews, and then eventually Greeks, and that turns into the Old and the New Testaments, which were Greek, right? And then Rome took over, as I had mentioned in my previous podcast, and we got the Latin. They basically changed it to Latin from the Greek, and a new priesthood had taken over at that time. So the ancient Greeks and the Orthodox Church to this day still have this term logosome. And I believe you spell it like logos and then ome, O-M-A-I-O. I believe that's how you pronounce it. But when you start researching this, they also have a term in Greek called cardia, the heart of a person. I believe when you start looking and you dig down to the etymology of the word and you look through the various interpretations from the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, and so forth, they meant that essentially you could determine based on a person where their heart was, where their mind was. And this relates to what I've been talking about with my teachings on the second brain and people having evil thoughts that are deriving not from here, but a gut pathogen within them. And then possibly, again, I'm not acting like I have all the answers. Possibly they're more apt to pathogens or who our ancestors would have called disembodied spirits that would be basically all around us at all times. They would say, you have good and bad spirits of people who had lived are all around us. And then these bad spirits that are around us, once they have departed, can affect that person who lives in that dark world that has those evil thoughts. And it's interesting because I mentioned about these evil thoughts before, and some of you have shared where you've had these things happen to you, where you've had things where, you had thought evil thoughts. I mentioned my son being affected by mold in a house and then seeing demons. This is where this kind of intertwines into the teachings and what I wanted to talk about moldy haunted houses. And I wanted to understand a lot of this. Again, it originates from me trying to understand what was going on with my son, who this toxic mold in this house was taking over his body, his brain, his mind. And then it was taking him to this realm. And I wasn't a religious fanatic. I wasn't a guy that talked like this. And he would come up with these religious type of visions and terms and seeing demons and being dragged to hell. 7 years old. 8 years old. Keep in mind that this is the same son that where he got sick was living in a moldy house. It's interesting now that I do mold remediation here in beautiful San Diego, California, County, California, that this same phenomenon I'm seeing time and time again. What's going on with these people? I'm going into houses where some people have never did a drug and they're losing their mind. And guess what I find in their home? Spiritus. Spirits. What I believe evil that want to eat them. Turning their homes into haunted homes. Tormenting them day and night. How many people I've talked to in regards to the last few years that have reached out to me crying. I've had podcasts, I've had people where I've had to call 911 because they were losing their mind and then they were being abused by the very people that love them, who I believe were also being taken over by this demonic fungi, the spiritus, in these now haunted houses. And that's where I believe also the thoughts start coming in as well to these haunted houses. I believe they start charging the air. So when a family there's no love and there's a lot of hate and there's a lot of words said, I believe this starts charging the air and making them more pathogenic. You see that with relationships. What happens when you and your loved one or someone you care about, or even when you witness someone fighting and getting angry or whatever? The dude got like really fucking close to me. Anyways. A beautiful day here. So you start feeling it in your gut. I felt that guy behind me in my gut. I didn't even actually see him. And then all of a sudden he was literally right beside me, riding like literally 6 inches from me, where this path is actually probably 8 feet wide, but he wanted to go right by me. His ego, I don't know, maybe he didn't like me because I was talking on my selfie stick. So that's maybe an evil thought that he got in his head. I'm going to go by this guy. Who does he think he is? I'm just going to ride by him. I don't know. Maybe he didn't mean to. I'm just thinking evil things. I don't know. But it's just interesting. But in any event, there's some nice little waves here today. Beautiful out here, guys. And make sure, this is one of the reasons that I do these walk and talks, is to, get out there. Oh, the guy's wearing a mask while he's exercising. Both of them are. So that kind of will tell you what we're dealing with. No, guys, I'm not anti-masker. I'm reality, okay? I actually wear a mask for my job, and those masks don't do anything for any type of virus or anything. And that's the science, okay? You have to have a P100 or an N100 to basically protect against a virus or any type of mold or anything like that. So when you wear a mask like that, it does nothing at all, right? Other than you rebreathe your carbon dioxide, you rebreathe any filth that's within your lungs. So if you have any issues, and any issues you might not know about, and then also our lungs they're like a filter, so I'm filtering things out of my mouth as I'm talking that come in. So if this is blocked, my filter's blocked. Like, put something on your muffler and see how long your car lasts, right? So that's why the science says those masks don't do anything. You have to have a P100, N100 or above mask, full face, to protect against any type of virus. And then you have, of course, everything around you. So just keep that in mind, guys. Believe what you want. I knew this before the coronavirus, and I've written articles on this because guess what happened? I got sick from wearing a mask. My crew, from working on mold jobs for 8 to 12 hours, and we're wearing these masks, and they're literally falling over and unable to go to work. My son, who's having issues now, who I've talked about, he literally just croaked over and couldn't move. And the next day, he was basically, he had no strength at all in his body. So that forced me down the rabbit hole of researching, what was going on. So 2 things I had to change in my business, which I learned, the hard way because of bad information, was that, hey, you got to take that mask on. So that mask off every 10 to 15 minutes to get oxygen, because if you don't, that carbon dioxide is going to poison your blood and it's going to affect you. Okay? And you can't wear them for prolonged periods of time, so you can't be doing mold jobs with your mask on for 8 hours, People that do that are abusing their employees, and, anybody that has to do that, you're literally killing yourself, or whoever's having you do that is killing you. So I recommend, if you have to wear a mask, no more than 4 hours, and they have to be increments, and then you want to take it off 10 to 15 minutes for every 15 minutes you wear it. And keep in mind, when you're doing some work, you're exercising. So when I was doing the mold work, we were breathing in these spiritists, right, all around us, and you got to get oxygen. So that's really what's important. So let's go back to this haunted house, this moldy house theory that I have. And again, there's science. If you research moldy houses, mold and haunted houses, toxic mold, there's actually scientists, I forget what university they're doing it at right now, but basically they're putting the science together where they're studying that mold does have a resonance, it does have a type of haunting that it can put out, and signals and noises and different things like that. And this is what I contend happens to people that live in a house that has mold over time. You'll find all these old mold houses, these haunted houses, they always have mold. You always see the mold thing. You'll see this common theme through movies, black orbs or the black goo. I believe this is all references somehow to what I'm talking about. And I believe a lot of people who don't suffer from drug issues suffer from mold issues, whether it's in their home, their body, or in the food or the alcohol that they're drinking, or possibly the prescription drug that they're taking. So keep in mind, I'm not here just to talk like, meth addicts have a problem or a heroin addict has a problem. I believe this happens to people that just live in a moldy house and they're trying to be healthy. Their houses become moldy. They become haunted. Possibly before they live there, what was going on there prior to you getting the keys to it? That's my question too, is I believe we don't really understand the spiritual implications of like taking the keys over, because that always kind of grosses me out. Like when I go into a hotel room, right, and I got to sleep in a bed that literally someone else just slept in and then another person slept in. And you guys know what happens in these hotel rooms and on these beds, and all these spirits and all these DNA and all this goo and all this semen and all this blood. And then you understand when you watch shows like Hotel Impossible that they're not getting cleaned right. These spiritists are literally everywhere. It's like Grossville scum. And then you're, going into this allegedly $500 a hotel night overlooking the ocean, right? And you're going into these haunted hotels with semen everywhere. We've actually, my wife and I, and this is why I wanted to talk about this, because some of you could probably relate with the haunted house, the spiritist thing, where I've actually slept in houses or been in houses where I've had nightmares or dreams. Or my wife is actually really famous for this. I believe women are a little bit more in touch with this realm than men. Interesting fact as far as mold goes. I would say women 80% of the time are the ones calling and having issues with mold, or They always find it. They're always hip to it more than the man. The man's always, oh, bullshit, mold's no big deal, rah, rah, rah. I drink it in my beer, I take it at work, it's all around me. Not realizing over time that eventually it's going to break him down too. And I see this happen time and time again, because these guys are always unhealthy. They end up dying at 55, 60 years old. They look, like they're 70 at 50. But these are the same guys. Oh, I'm not worried about it. Screw it. And then I believe these create toxic relationships, and then inside metaphysically, and then these charge these houses with this negative energy, and all of a sudden, that house blows up, a divorce happens, or someone kills themselves, and then, oh, here's the keys from the realtor to you, unknowingly, happy-go-lucky, we just want to have a house at the beach or a hotel. And then all of a sudden you're going into these realms and we're not understanding what was happening there before, breathing in these pathogens that are left there in that environment, charged by the people before us. Why else would we, when someone is murdered, have to disclose that as a real estate agent, realtor, right? Why is it such a big deal? Why has it always been such a big deal? Why does no one want to buy these homes? Why do they sell for 50% less? Even the multi-million dollar ones, when someone goes crazy, multi-murders, beautiful homes. And then all of a sudden, Mr. Tough Guy, who doesn't believe in all this, they don't want to buy it. No one wants to buy it. Because I believe intuitively we know this. These are things that have been passed down through our ancestors, and because we live in modernity, we don't see that, we don't agree, but deep down our gnosis tells us. Thank you. It's beautiful out here, guys, today in San Diego. I'm definitely blessed to live here. Everybody's bailing out of California. They're going to Texas. I say, leave and we'll stay here. I don't believe it's always going to be as bad as people think. Sometimes it's the price you pay. To me, California is not that bad. Texas doesn't have this. They have their ports. I mean, in the summer, right, it gets like 110 on the beach, Corpus Christi and stuff, and it's all sticky, But no, I believe Texas is beautiful. Nothing against the Texans, but California is beautiful too. We're not all crazy liberals, right? We're not all Nazis. We're not all Antifa or QAnon. You don't even really, if you don't pay attention to all that stuff, guys, really, I believe we live in reality tunnels. And especially on the internet, you could pick whatever reality that you want to live in. And the reality I want to live in is truth and love, and then understanding, what's going on with the world around me, what happened to my son, what's happening to my son right now who has a meth addiction. Why do I have and have had these evil thoughts to do wrong? And where it's a struggle. And it's this weird thing where sometimes, I have this one thought where I want to do the will of the human, and kick this guy's butt or do something. And then reason steps in, my philosophy and what that would do to my family and my livelihood, and there's this weird duality that we have, all of us, I believe, and we need to understand that, these are these impulses, these evil thoughts, the yasar hara that people have when they decide to kill someone, right? You hear that. What do these people hear? What kind of thoughts are they having when they decide to kill their wife or their mother on a binger? What demon? And that's what's interesting when you hear about a lot of these stories I've reported on, anywhere from people that are high on meth, alcohol, and then also prescription psychotropic drugs. They seem to hear these voices, these evil thoughts. Then they act upon them. When I research the stories time and time again, I see someone whose health has been compromised, whose body, I believe, has been taken over by mold because of the drugs or the psychotropic drugs that have been given that teenager that now has these thoughts, these people that have been hurting him. He's now going to shoot him up, kill him. They have these evil thoughts for days, weeks, months. They kindle like a fire, and then they decide to act upon them. Interesting, when I was younger, I didn't know about philosophy. I had no idea about wisdom, Plato, Plutarch, Manly P. Hall, the teachings of Freemasonry, reason, the 7 liberal arts. It was like I was dumbed down here in the United States of America, right? Beautiful place, but what did I learn? How to be human. I didn't learn anything. It's might is right, conquer. My dad was an alcoholic. I saw my neighbor, instead of treating them as they wanted to be treated, take advantage of the neighbor. And then I turned into being like that myself, and hating myself, and drinking and doing drugs, and then having these evil thoughts and doing things not understanding, ending up in jail, in prison, and going, how did I get here? And then slowly, as I regained my health and the drugs slowly went out of my body, and I had time to think and use reason, I realized that I was putting myself there. I was acting like a beast, like an animal. This is what I contend that our second brain essentially is, and what it derives from, and what fuels it and fuels everything around us in actuality, is this animal soul, the beast. 666. It controls all carbon matter. I've written about 666, the beast, and that it's us, you and I. The whole idea of this journey we call life is about controlling the beast and putting it under your foot like Saint Michael, right? That doesn't mean you kill the beast. It's part of us. It's what Carl Jung, whoever you want to call him, had called the shadow. We have to integrate the shadow. Jordan Peterson, modern day philosopher, you'll hear him say that as well. So this is the duality, I believe, of humans that we all have, the dark and the light side, that we need to integrate somehow into our being. It doesn't mean that the dark side we extinguish, because I believe it always comes back. And this is where I believe, again, in Christianity, we get some of these teachings. Again, I started being a Christian when I was younger, going away from it, then going to Gnosticism. But I believe you can't enter kingdom if you're not like a child. If you can't have fun. And so that's kind of what I wanted to end this walk and talk with, is having fun and being healthy. And I think that's exactly what the Christians would have meant. You can't enter heaven unless you're like a child. And that's what I feel people who aren't Christian, who aren't spiritual, that kind of scoff at this type of stuff, but they're living great lives. They're healthy. They're happy. They're not really thinking evil thoughts. They're possibly surfing, around the world in different areas. Hopefully I don't fall here, guys. I'm walking on these jetties. I don't know. I like to be near the water. It makes me happy. Just right here. Get re-energized. Healthy, right? So, how does someone who is not religious, who doesn't even know about heaven and hell or think about it, have a heavenly life? You see them all around us all the time. Not everybody. But, maybe they lived a good life and they taught their kids, and their parents taught them how to treat other people, and then they did right in life, and they didn't screw people over, and they got a good job. They decided not to do drugs and drink. They try to be happy and not think evil thoughts. And if they do, They don't act upon them. Who are those people? They're living in heaven because they're healthy. In the Christian sense, we could say they're good Christians. They don't even know it. And then you have Christians or people that are religious that say they follow God, they're spiritual, they don't sin, yet they're like demons, hypocrites, unhealthy, obese, sick. Everything that comes out of their mouth is venom, hate. I contend they live in hell. I contend if they keep up with that life, like I had said in my other walk and talk, it's all about learning how to die. So I contend they may go with the parasites. That's what the religious teachings tell us, right? Their Lord is the Lord of Hades, as they would say in ancient Greece. This rock is actually kind of going into my butt. Guys, it's hurt. It's kind of sharp. So I got to try to find somewhere a little more comfortable. But in any event, the devil would be their master, right? In Christianity, Hades would be their Lord. This is basically who's in charge of these people, is what they would have said. And as I had said, the ancient Hebrews and in Judaism, that would be called Yetzer Hara. So, be healthy, guys. I feel better. Like, I feel I'm able to control my thoughts, my body, my life, the healthier I am. I also like to add wisdom into my thing, studying wisdom and things that pertain to my life, and then walking the walk, walking the talk. I feel that's important. Plutarch had this thing when, and you'll see this, you could learn all the wisdom in the world that you want and still wither away and still be tormented. So, anyways, try to act on the wisdom. Remember, if you don't win or beat all of your vices, it's okay. Don't be too hard on yourself. I actually made the decision not to actually quit drinking forever, but to say I abstain. And I choose to when I want to. Because I like to have a little drink here and there and a little beer and commune with the spirits, right? Who some people do, some people don't. I think it's something I'm always going to enjoy. And when I actually said I'm going to abstain rather than I quit, it was more powerful to me, So I have told myself there's going to be times throughout the year where I'm going to have a drink and enjoy a drink with my family, with my wife. And it's just not going to be as often as it was before, every weekend. I had felt my health was deteriorating. I was not able to control my thoughts as much when I drank so much. So, all this stuff that I talk about is also happened to me by trial and error, So I feel the healthier that I get and the better I treat my body, the less I drink, the more I'm able to control those evil thoughts or those bad thoughts. The happier I am, the less depressed I am. So that's where I feel the depression comes from as well, is when we're not being authentic to ourselves and we're not living an authentic life, and then we're not actually doing because we know we should be. So I challenge some of you out there to start doing. To start trying to control that beast within you that's trying to control you. So, some of you, like Julie, had mentioned that you tried to quit drinking. Try to quit drinking for a weekend. One weekend, you could do it. I've gone, several times in my life. I've gone a year because I went to prison. But last year I went 8 months. This year I went 5 months. And then I plan to go another 4 months or so where I don't plan to have any drinks. Summer, I love the summer. As you see, I live here in beautiful San Diego, so I mean it's January right now, right, the middle of winter. But you tend to want to have a nice beer after a day of surfing and enjoying the family, and that's what I talk about in embracing your dark side. There's a lot of people that channel this dark energy, this energy. What I've learned is in sports. Some of the most, I wouldn't say the most, but people that have been abused, that have hard lives, lived in tough neighborhoods. You see this in Mexico with the boxers, right? You see this with the fighters, the UFC, whether it's the Russians or the Brazilians, right? These guys that have tough lives, basically with nothing, and they channel this energy into something that's positive. So that's the idea, I believe. I mean, you look at that sport, right? Like UFC fighting. These guys it's brutal combat, bloody. You could die, brain damage. I mean, it's kind of the dark side of the human, right? This would have been the Roman centurion fights, right? That all of us watched. Instead, we're watching UFC, guys, just so you know. That's our modern day Roman gladiators. They happen to be everywhere around the world, right? Some of them are very wise, philosophical, but they could kill you. It's interesting, a lot of these guys are some of the coolest guys you'll ever meet. As I'd mentioned in another walk and talk, I'm a black belt myself. I got it in my early 40s. It taught me a lot, taught me respect. Being around men that could kill me and fighting them every weekend, and learning, being around guys that worked in the DEA and the prisons that I used to be in. It's interesting when you learn to fight and to protect yourself. There's this philosophy that you get with life and everything. But what I learned through my thing, being so old and doing it, I was channeling that energy through that, and I continue to do that. I like to work out. I have a heavy bag. I hit the bag when I get upset. So there's things that I like to do to channel that shadow, to channel that dark side. And sometimes when I get those evil thoughts, thank you again for tuning in, guys. I appreciate you. Let's see if I can say hello. Yeah, Julie. No, my son who had the mold trouble is actually my 14-year-old son now. And then I have a son from a previous marriage who has the meth problem. So that's the difference. So I have actually 6 kids. I have 3 boys who are now 31, 29, 23 from a previous marriage. So one of those sons, my oldest, is having the meth issue. And then my 14-year-old son now was the child that had mold. And to answer your question, when did I get into Gnosticism? I got into Gnosticism about 11 or 12 years ago, and started just studying the world. And I got gravitated towards Gnosticism and learning about gnosis. It means knowledge, and I wanted to not be a believer. So when I do something, I go all in. I look to find out, to know it inside and out. And I believe that's what a Gnostic does. And we participate and we use these teachings in the modern sense. I don't like to just talk about old Gnosticism and Yaldabaoth and Sophia and all the mythical tales. I actually like to, what did they mean? What can we do to apply it now? What could I add to these ancient teachings that my ancestors or the Gnostics might be proud of me? And I feel that this would be it, I believe Gnosticism, know thyself. I mean, the health people do it now. So I believe a lot of people are Gnostics. We live in actually a Gnostic world. They just don't know it. And, you don't have to call yourself a Gnostic. I don't really go, hey, my name's Mo. I'm a Gnostic really to anybody. It's just something that I gravitated towards, and I felt Gnostic warrior, knowledge warrior was a good way because of all the lies out there that we found, and then I could uncover, and then I would document them through my articles, through my podcast, which I've been doing for 10 years, and then also through these walk and talks, and then my own personal experience. I believe that's what it's all about, is, being a doer and, using that knowledge as well. Thank you again, everybody around the world. I appreciate you guys. Let me see if I could answer any other questions. Yeah, in regards to the mask, guys, I only wear them when I have to, like if I go into a store and everything, I try not to, play the game. I'll put it down below my nose and breathe out my nose. But again, do what you want. My Gnosticism, my Gnosis, my studies, I literally studied it for like 2 weeks, for like 8 hours a day, and then ended up writing an article. And so usually when I get into a subject, I get into it for days and hours, and I just don't read like a news article or Dr. Fauci or whoever's going to tell me what the hell to think. That leads you to nowhere. So in any event, Christian, so how did Solomon control demons and jinns? Interesting you say that, Christian, because I was thinking about that just today. I believe it all starts here and within here. But what's interesting, if you hear the story about Solomon, is that he descended from these demons. Story about Jesus, interesting, is you'll hear he also descended from Jesus. So when the apostles and everybody were debating, why could he expel demons, the big questions was, did he have a demon within him as well? This is the dark side, the shadow that I believe that we all have. And again, I'm not 100% certain how it works, like I have all the answers. I'm trying to flesh those out and again share those with you guys, the Gnostic Warrior. Amen. Oh, there I am. Sorry, guys. Sorry, I lost the connection. I don't know what's going on. But basically, to get back to the Solomon question, how did Solomon control the demons and the jinn? I believe it all starts with here, and then also integrating the shadow. So I believe that's a huge part, is that you have to be able to integrate your daemon into your life, your ego, center it with your life, your spiritual life, with your physical life. And then I believe that you could control the world around you. I believe that's who the powerful people are, is the healthy people, the strong people. And it's weird, I call sometimes these people meth demons, right? And again, I don't mean this as a blanket statement that everybody does meth. There's heroin demons or whatever. I'm talking about when they get to the point they can't control their mind, then they do evil acts. So kind of in the Christian sense, right? So everybody that does meth isn't evil, right? They're not demons automatically. I believe it's what they do, their evil thoughts over time, these evil actions that possibly take them down to the demon realm, where they are taken over by these demons rather than controlling them. Playing in the dark, an evil realm like it's kids play. Doing these drugs, like I had said, methamphetamine, that's like a bullet train to hell, right? So that's where I believe the demons start taking over these people and start making them do heinous acts. So anyways, I'm going to talk a little bit more about, that theology as I go along, and let's see if I could help answer anybody else. Stephen, the ancients believe we had like an animal soul, like our primordial soul. Holy shit. Sorry guys, I keep getting a call from someone at work, and I keep declining it, but I own the business, but he keeps calling. And usually it's not an emergency, like anything's going on, but in any event, that's a different story that I'll talk about later. So anyways, the ancients had believed that we had like an animal soul, the primordial man, and then basically over time that, the God soul was diffused in us. And when I look at those teachings, I was trying to understand exactly, what they had meant by that. And then when you start researching the history and the science, you start learning about phosphorus and this chemical energy that we actually use, that we take from down here and goes up here through the act of actually using your mind, actually thinking. All right, so this is where I believe you actually, when they talk about the chakras, your chakras are basically all your glands, right? What's a chakra on the human? There's no such thing as a chakra. Those are our glands, right? And then it goes up to basically our root chakra, they call it. What's our root chakra? Or basically our crown chakra, I'm sorry. So our crown would be basically our mind. So when we activate our kundalini, i.e. our central nervous system, and we manage it and the demons within us and the parasites, and we start using our brain, and we start being active and healthy and start using good thoughts, we start controlling the demons within us and around us, right? There's not many demons that can get over on me. I know a lot. I come across a lot of darkness in my life, and they can't get one over on me right now. I know it could happen, just like, a prized fighter heavyweight, they can't win every fight. I'm not acting like I'm invincible, and I don't want to invite that. But what I'm saying is I'm more apt to control the demons than them control me. I'm more apt to control my environment, my surroundings, and create the life I want to live, rather than be a tool of the environment or the black magicians over me that want to control my mind and sell me a bunch of bullshit. Right? So, when I started getting into the Gnostic thing, I learned, it took me a while, that I got to start doing. I got to stop talking and doing. And at the same breath, I'm part of this world. I have got to make my money, because if I don't make money, then I got to live in a bad area with a moldy house. So one of the reasons that I choose to make money is because I want to live where I want to live. I don't want anybody to tell me where I want to live, or I don't want to live in a bad area because I don't make enough money to afford a nice house that they actually take care of it and have pride in it, So those are the things that I've learned that I've got to do is, I got to operate both in, the spiritual aspect, the study, and then also I got to do the health part. I got to eat, so guys, you gotta remember it's a little bit of everything to get your health and to get your mind back. And then if you're having issues, a lot of people I've learned, especially when they're sick from toxic mold, is they stay online all day and then they're inside, and then I believe if you have toxic mold within you, guess what you're breathing? You're rebreathing you. Okay, so this is why it's important to get out into the fresh air and have airflow through you. They used to talk about this a lot. I forget the exact term, and they actually have a science where your whole body breathes, right? So if you're sitting down, like say in the same spot for prolonged periods of time, all your waste, all the debris, all the carbon dioxide literally goes around you like a fog, like a smoke. And I contend, if you have a mold issue, if you're sick from mold, then you're around other people that have mold in their body. You're breathing that all in all day within a house. And then if you have mold in your house, it's a Molotov cocktail. So I believe that there's actually moldy people. We could be moldy and then rebreathe that. And so to get well, I feel, because I have asthma myself, and one of the things that I do is I got to get outside and I got to walk and I got to move and I got to get my blood pumping through my heart, and I realize, if you stay stagnant, when things stay stagnant, right, they get rusty, they get dusty, they get decrepit, they get moldy. What about us? Why are we different? I don't think we are. And you could see that in people, that don't move. It's just like, when I sit down for like 4 hours and I try to get up and I'm like, oh man, my leg, my butt. I've had 6 to 7 hour sit down sessions where I'm researching just totally imbalanced. And I try to get up and my legs, literally the blood's cut off and I'm like, oh, and for literally like hours, my legs are like hurting. So imagine when people do this day in, day out, day in, day out. I contend these are the people that go in those chairs, those wheelchairs, those scooters. They can't walk. You don't use it, you lose it. This is the unseen world punishing the glutton, the sloth. Not that they have evil thoughts, they have idle thoughts, as they would say in Christianity. Gluttonous thoughts, sloth. They're not hurting nobody, they're hurting themselves. I contend the spirit world punishes us humans when we don't be human and have fun and live and be good. That's my theology in a nutshell. Be good. Be a real human. Try not to be a mold, a copy of a copy. Be authentic. Treat yourself right. Think good thoughts. Treat your neighbor right. Eat good. And all will be well. And avoid moldy houses, right? Avoid moldy people. Oh, beautiful day here, guys. I am definitely blessed, and I hope you guys take some of the words, take a walk today. Take some of these teachings that I'm learning, and hopefully you could apply them to your life and teach other people. Yeah, we live in duality. Some days it's cloudy, some days it's beautiful. The last walk and talk, the wind was blowing me over, the tempest, the rain was coming down. You barely could hear, and then today, couldn't be more beautiful. As if I'm in heaven. Talk about duality, right? And this same person here could treat you like an angel if you treat me like one. And then also, if you treat me like a demon, you're going to get my demon. It's interesting, my dark side, my duality. What is that dark side? It's my tough side, right? My shadow side, but I have it under a chain, though. That's what's interesting. I learned the more healthy you are, the more you train your shadow, your dark side, integrate your shadow into your life with the light on top, of course. You become, not inverted, you're Vitruvian man, right? You're standing straight up like a pentagram, right? I believe that everything, signs and symbols rule the world, and that's how we are. Like Solomon was like a pentagram, right? And he's thinking out his mind, and he's thinking right, connecting to his heart, and using reason. That's when we control the demons, we control ourselves, we control the world, right? It doesn't mean that we can't be weak. It doesn't mean that if a demon comes after me and tries to attack me, that I'm not going to use my martial arts and take him out in 2 seconds. or use my brain to avoid a situation, because again, demons have weapons, right? So you can know all the martial arts in the world, and I see this happen all the time, where a guy knows how to fight and he's a big guy, and a 100-pound demon stabs him in the gut 100 times and he never lives to see another day. So that demon, that person, decided to act on his evil thoughts, pull out a knife and take a man's life. Where that possibly guy that knew how to fight would have never thought that would have happened. But it happens every day all across the nation, every country in the world. So yeah, that's a good one, Thomas. The centaur symbolism, the centaurs, those were the mythical half beast and half human characters that they had in ancient Greece and Rome. So you had basically these gods and goddesses that were half animal. You'll see also like the old pictures of Alexander the Great, and the old warriors, they would have actually paintings on their stomachs, right, on their shields. So they would have all these shields on. A lot of them would have that. And I talked about that before as well, is the paintings of the devils and the demons. They would always paint their faces, the demons, on their stomach and then on their butts, So they've been talking about this, for a long time. So in any event, try to think good thoughts. When you have an evil thought or a bad thought, recognize it and refuse to give into it. If you're a Christian, you could say the Lord's Prayer. That's what they recommend. Again, I have found to, basically not to give into those thoughts, to deny them access to my brain. And again, I feel the healthier you are, the less mold that you have within your body, i.e. the less drinking you do, the less, moldy houses that you go into, the more fresh air you get, the more that you could control those thoughts, think healthy, and so forth. So in any event, thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to head back to my job and get to work. I have an employee that's been trying to call me this whole time. So hopefully the home he's working on's not burning down, or mold's not eating his brain or something. So anyways, thank you again for tuning in. Please hit that like button. Tell me where you're from. Any stories that you might have of thoughts, evil thoughts, good thoughts, what you've done yourself, are also of haunted, moldy houses. Maybe people that have never done drugs, where they've been into a house and started making them crazy, thoughts they never would have had. Anyways, take care. Peace be with you all. Bye.